When I talk to folks about reimagining their spiritual communities, the conversation will often come around to a question. Happened again just a few days ago. What are some organizing principles to guide our rebuilding work? What are some principles around which we can organize our spirituality, organize our thinking and our practices, our rebuilding? Well, here's one. We have a pithy saying in our community: the central organizing principle of the spiritual life, the indwelling divine in each of us. The central organizing principle of the spiritual life, the indwelling divine in each of us. We have found that to be a core principle for rebuilding healthy spiritual community. Every one of us a carrier of the inner divine. So if you are leading a reimagining community, if you are leading a reconstructing community, and if you come from a Christian background, it might help you to know some history behind those words, because we're not just making shit up. Much of Christian history and tradition and doctrine mounts a direct challenge to the very familiar notion for many religious people that we are defined by our sin, that sin is the deepest part of our being. Do this search in ChatGPT. Christian sources defining human nature as divine light rather than sinful darkness. Defining human nature as divine light rather than sinful darkness. You'll get a lot. You'll get some often ignored scriptures. You'll get insights from Eastern Orthodoxy and from the Quakers and the earliest Christian writers called the patristics. You'll get insights from Celtic Christians, St. Francis, a lot of our Christian mystics. You will get a lot. In fact, it's only that part of the Christian tradition that is directly descended from the Roman takeover in 325 that tells any story but we are, every one of us, carriers of divine light. It's a central organizing principle, and it's a principle upon which we can rebuild our communities. Here's the thing. Our organizations take the shape that they do because of the behaviors of the people in the organization. So if you want to rebuild your organization, simple. All you have to do is change people's behaviors. Yeah, that's been tried. I grew up in a religion working really hard to modify my behaviors with my best interest in mind. But here's the thing about behaviors. They don't really change over the long run simply because we dictate it to be so or we make a rule. Human behaviors take the shape that they do because of the instincts that we carry deep inside of ourselves. And changing instincts, much more challenging. But turns out, when we are steeped in a different meaning-making story, like we are carriers of divine light, stories change instincts, which changes behaviors, which changes organizations. So here's an example. Lots of people come to our community having been hurt by some other religious community. You know the territory. They didn't believe the right way or they didn't behave the right way, and eventually they just didn't belong anymore. So of course they show up with a them nested in an us-them construct. Us, the people who accept me, often our community. Us, the good people, the right people, my kind of people, just how our brains work. And them, the people who behaved badly. The people who hurt me, the people who rejected me, bad people, wrong people, those people. But marinate for a while in a different story. Every one of us carriers of inner light. Now we've got a problem because our us-them construct, so familiar, so comfortable, so established, so natural in our brains, it begins to unravel. Because marinate in that story for a while, begin to internalize it, and we begin to see something that we had not seen. Yes, they did behave badly. But if I'm honest, I do that too. And this story that I am marinating in tells me about me that when I behave badly, my bad behavior is not my defining center. So maybe, and damn, I don't like this, maybe their bad behavior is not their defining center either. If you know the history of Western mysticism, Meister Eckhart, Julian of Norwich, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, there are quite a few of them. They didn't use the term non-dualism, that's a more current word, but non-dualism was central to their spirituality. We've said it this way in our community: oneness is a better description of reality than two-ness. We'll talk about that in future posts. It's another central organizing principle, but just this for today. Self and other sure feel like two. They sure feel like separate and discrete packages. But internalize that internal divine story for a while, that you have the same light in you that I have in me, and yeah, we are more one than we are two, which changes us. Slowly, over time, it begins to change our instincts, which then changes our behaviors, which then changes how we behave in the community. Now, I know that the word oneness is kind of woo-woo. Let me show you how very practical it gets very quickly. If our story tells us that us carries the divine and them carries the divine, more oneness than two-ness, in practical terms, I cannot stay divided from you. I cannot hold on to resentment and judgment of you. I can't keep you in the box of my contempt, because that is not the reality that we live in this story that we tell. Consequently, over the long run, it just won't work. Now, our ego selves don't like that. Our ego selves often incline us to reject the whole notion of oneness together, because that's a very demanding and difficult thing to embrace. But eventually, spiritual life and spiritual practice founded on a different meaning-making story will change us. So, if you are leading a reimagining spiritual community, if you are helping people rediscover better stories, and if you succeed and people do integrate an inner divine oneness story, the work that you do as a leader is going to change. You will begin to notice, as I did, that our own skills and the skills of the folks in our communities don't match our rediscovered stories. In other words, we don't know how to live a divine center story. We don't know how to live a oneness story. So in our community, for example, we had to develop a robust training in conflict resolution in order to be able to live a oneness story. We had to develop a robust training in self-awareness so that we could do conflict resolution. We had to rediscover and we had to integrate practices that developed the skills that enabled us to live our stories, which meant we had to design training resources for our folks. We had to put things onto our calendar. We had to put things into our budget. Carriers of the inner light sounds like a very pretty story. More one than two sounds like a very pretty story, but it means we have to rebuild how we build our spiritual communities. And I did that for 30 years. And I've given away what I've learned along the way is why I started this online community. So if you are rebuilding your spiritual community, I hope you'll join in. There's a lot that we can learn together. And a good place to start, get the online course. It's free. There's lots in there about how stories shape communities. I also hope you'll join the online community where we get to know each other who are doing this kind of work, help each other rebuild healthy spiritual communities. All the links that you're going to need, they're all in the YouTube notes. Hope you'll check it out.